So, on a day that could not possibly get any weirder, when Mercury is clearly in retrograde, and I say, I'm done with everything, I'm turning off my phone after I play one more game of Pokemon, I'm going to bed. And I'll be damned if right before I shut my phone off after that game of Pokemon, I get a DM saying, Hey, we'd love to chat. And it was an opportunity that I couldn't miss. So, with no further ado, I figure I owe this person at least a conversation, since I did go in a live stream say that they'd been shot over the weekend, which was completely incorrect, and I did retract it. But here to tell you their story, I suppose in their own words. What is your name, sir?
I guess since it's already been identified through that affidavit that was released to the westward, my name is Jeremiah Elliott.
So how about the other name that's been floating around? Is that a real person? Is that an alias? Was it Joshua Kelly? I forget.
I'm not sure where that alias derives from. I don't use that alias, but anyone using that name is slandering someone else.
Interesting, because that, I don't know if you've heard, if you follow this for a while, that guy's my boyfriend. Sometimes they like to hang out near my house. And so I was a little jealous when he got to you before I did, but I was like, whoa, that's the wrong name. He's not actually my boyfriend. It's just me being absolutely ridiculous, but because he likes to stalk people and be really mean. So, but he gave the wrong name initially, I think, in his first report, and he was the first person to identify you. But you don't know, but your name is Jeremiah Elliott. All right. So I was also a little disappointed to hear that you're like the president of BLM on Antifa in Denver. I thought I was.
So I am not the president or any type of leader of any organization here in Denver.
Okay. But you show up and punch people at different rallies, like the Bernie rally. That's leadership to me.
So I didn't punch anyone and if you're referring to the Bernie rally, people don't like my opinion, and that's their choice, you know.
There are a whole bunch of people who don't like my opinions either. I totally get it. So the punching story then isn't real?
I was at a Bernie Sanders rally, yes.
Okay.
There's a full video out there if anyone's interested in watching it, not just the edited one. I'll send you a copy of that. You want someone, a white gentleman walked up to me because I was wearing a Black Guns Matter shirt, because I believe black gun ownership is important. And they told me my shirt was racist, and then they put their hands on me, and you know, things proceeded from there.
That's really interesting. I have to admit, I'd never heard of Black Guns Matter either. If I saw a white person wearing it, my default position would be, wow, that's really awful. What are you doing? But for a Black person to wear it, seems like it would be a little bit different. Can you tell us where the origination of Black Guns Matter? How long have you been president of that?
I'm not the president of Black Guns Matter, and I'm sure the owner of it doesn't appreciate me wearing a shirt.
So what is Black Guns Matter? Is that an organization or just a statement on Black ownership? Black gun ownership, sorry.
I was wearing a shirt because I think Black gun ownership is important. I'll let Maj tell you what his organization stands for.
Very cool. All right. No, sorry, I didn't mean to get sidetracked there. I was very much stuck on that shirt because it's something in the movement I hadn't heard of. I love learning a little something new every day. So do you want to, you mentioned that you're going to be on the news tomorrow and you wanted an opportunity to sort of tell your own story in your own words first. Where do you want to start?
I think just the sequence of events that happened that day. Okay. I think a lot of attempts have been made by far-right extremist groups to label me as responsible for that man's death. Mm-hmm. I'm not responsible for organizing a muster of so-called patriots who showed up to our Capitol armed with guns and bear mace and batons and shields and other weapons. I didn't organize that. I didn't tell them to muster up their weapons and their people and show to the Capitol. I'm not responsible for that man's death. That man threatened me and my life. You see it in the video. Mm-hmm. Everyone wants to talk about how I screamed, "Shoot me," but no one wants to talk about how he put his hand to his head and he said he's going to shoot me, and his buddy pulls out a knife. It says, "I'm going to stab you," And in the video, you can clearly see him brandishing a baton, and his other hand he has a knife. And the shooting victim, if you want to call him a victim, has bear mace in his one hand, and he continues to approach me. I take several steps back in the video. And for them to say that, like I'm a leader of Antifa or BLM or some kind of organizer, or if I'm leading them, why am I alone? I was one man standing alone, surrounded by white supremacists and other far right leaning groups like them. And on one side, it's all of them armed to the teeth. And on the other side, it's the SWAT team. I mean, if I'm such an antagonizer and they back the blue so much, why didn't they call the blue for assistance? Why are they surrounding me and, drawing weapons when they're police feet away if they back them so much?
Well, I got to say, when we heard that initially, as I said in my live stream on Saturday, when the story broke, I was on the phone with some elected officials who were saying, this is going to be terrible. They're saying that the shooter is a member of the left. And I'm like, I don't think so. They're not one of ours. And which is not to say I know every single person out there. I don't, and I own that. Like, this is the first time we've ever had a conversation, but I'm not on the front lines that often. My role is decidedly different. There's also a list of and it's not an official list there, when you have like a vigil for a family and they say, hey, we would like this to stay in this lane. If these people show up, could you help us? Because they're not going to call the police if someone shows them a break window. So we just sort of attempt to help respect, I guess, the integrity of different events on behalf of the organizers. It's not like we're out there voluntarily policing, just sort of, it's more like mutual aid and community defense, so to speak, which is, as I said as well, you aren't on any of those lists. Your name has never come up as problematic, and you're not one of the organizers that's ever reached out and asked us to do anything. So when I saw that headline initially, I think it was the Gateway Pundit, some super right wing. I didn't pay any attention to it, but it was the first one that had a clear shot of your face. But that article 2 days later was still being cited as source material by legitimate and local news organizations. And I'm like, wow, your sources are my boyfriend and the Gateway Pundit. We need to talk about this. Oh my God, that poor guy. So number one, I'm sorry that somehow we weren't able to get to you. That was a real frustration for us that day, running tactical communications on the ground. How do we get anyone over there? And we couldn't. And then we discovered. So that's my apologies. I really wish. I'm glad you're okay. I'm really sad and will continue to be frustrated that we couldn't get anyone there to you. But could you tell us how you got over there by yourself in the first place?
Initially, I did a couple laps around. I walked around. I don't want to talk too much about the events leading up to it. Obviously, there's current litigation going on.
Got it.
But they were doing a pretty good job of separating the two crowds. But anytime you have a public event that's not a ticketed event, it's open to one, it's open to all. So I simply waited until someone was wearing an American flag, and if this beautiful white woman can walk in front of me with an American flag and walk to this rally, you can't stop me for wearing what I'm wearing and walking to the rally just because of my ideology. So, the SWAT team made attempts to stop people, but they don't get to sort the crowd of who gets to go to what. So, they did guard the front entrance, and they were kind of, policing who got into the greater event, but nothing could stop me from walking over to the entrance of the event. I didn't come armed. The police did search me on the scene. I didn't have any weapons of any kind. And again, I'm by myself. I was a single man by myself, surrounded by a patriot muster of armed patriots with firearms, visible batons and shields and bulletproof vests and golf clubs and sticks and mace and all sorts of defensive weapons. I didn't pose a threat to any of them.
No, I mean, and as someone said on my Twitter feed today, is it really so hard to believe that a black man would be so fed up that they would just show up and yell something along those lines? And that's it. You don't need to be told or sent or paid in order to do that, which is part of what this movement is about.
You don't have to be a crisis actor to show up to a rally for far right-leaning groups that oftentimes support white supremacy. There was a point in Colorado when we had the second highest Ku Klux Klan membership, and those two things still linger here. And I'm fed up. I'm gonna stand up for what I believe in. I'm willing to die for what I believe.
Did you think you were going to die on Saturday?
The gentleman who was shot, shortly before I started saying, go ahead and shoot me, then made a threat that he was going to shoot me. 2 guns were recovered from the scene, and it is my impression or my belief that the shooting victim was armed. That hasn't been verified, but my understanding, he had a gun, and he did make a threat to shoot me. He put his hand in his head, and he made that verbal threat. You can hear that in the video. After he does that, I say, go ahead and shoot me then. And people want to say I'm enticing violence, but you can see in the video me take several steps back and pivot on my back foot. And then at one point I say, I'm standing my ground. I got the right to stand my ground. You have the right to pull out a knife and baton and mace. And for the organizer of that event to say that, that the left was so responsible for destroying his event. I mean, the left wasn't there. There was, a 100-yard barricade and 200 cops between him and anyone on the left. And, he's really trying to point out me as this agitator that turned this whole event sideways. If you're an organizer of a patriot muster and you can let one angry black man, turn your entire event into violence and chaos, and say I'm responsible for that is just, really, it's a shame that he can't take responsibility for, not getting everyone home safe.
And if all those people with all those weapons can't get one, to use your words, angry black man to shut the fuck up, then why bother with them and the pretense of security anyway, would kind of be my question. Because how can you be the one inciting violence with what the color of your skin, the words on your shirt? They have the guns. They should have had, by all intents and purposes, I would guess, the upper hand.
I mean, there's several videos that you can see me expressing my beliefs, and several people were upset with the things I said, and several people walked away from it. But several people chose to have conversations with me where they walked up to me and they chose to engage, just like the shooting victim chose to engage with me. I wasn't following people to their cars. I wasn't following people home. They could have walked away from me, and there were several people who did walk away. He chose not to, and then in the middle of this assault against me, he chose to try and attempt to assault a cameraman because he didn't want to be on videotape, clearly because he didn't want the assault that was clearly going to happen to me shortly thereof to be on camera. There's other recordings of him threatening another photographer, threatening to knock them out if they take a picture of him. So it was very clear that he intended to do harm that day, and he intended for it to not be seen. I'm a single man by myself, alone, in front of all the reporters. If you want to kill me where I stand for what I believe in front of all of the press, you're welcome to. But let's be clear that this rally was organized by a man who is responsible for the violence that happened on these streets. You organize this rally of mustered of armed individual, and when you excite that sort of violence, when people come armed to those sort of things, they want violence. They want an antagonizer to do something so they can enact harm on them. That's why they bring those weapons with them.
And that's the same logic that was used for Sam Young. I remember when the DA announced that they were not going to press charges against Sebastian Sassi, the driver of the Ford F-150, or the other drivers that day on 225. They slandered, in my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, so I can throw that word around, right? I'm not a journalist either. They said that Sam clearly wasn't there to protest because he brought a gun, as though you're not allowed to, as though there's some rule somewhere that I've never seen that says you are not allowed to exercise your First and Second Amendment rights concurrently in public or elsewhere. But I guess we don't even use the same rules for all white men, depending on the issue.
Well, I see a lot of different narratives being trying to slander around the shooter, whether he was Antifa or BLM affiliated, whether I'm a crisis actor, whether it was all staged. Questions like that have all been posed. But I think the really important thing to focus on is that this violence came from the right,
Yep.
That someone on the right chose to bring a weapon there and chose to use that weapon. And that's what instigated this violence. People can make their legal assumptions on whether a use of deadly force is necessary, but I can guarantee you that everyone on the right, if they were bitch slapped and then sprayed with mace, and that person possibly had a gun, would they wait until the next incident happened? That violence is still coming from the right. People are trying to slander my name and call me a BLM terrorist and call me a leader of Antifa, and I'm getting constant death threats. People are trying to, give out my previous employers, and I've been contacted from everywhere I used to work. I'm currently not working anywhere, just dealing with everything going on right now. My safety's in danger. I've set up a GoFundMe to get security. The security is definitely an issue now, and they want to say how violent the left is, but it's the violence is coming from the right, and that stand by and stand back didn't work out so well.
Okay, well, please, if you have the link handy for your GoFundMe, if you could put it in the comments, and we'll push that out to all the platforms and make sure everyone sees it too. Is there anything else that we can do for you to support you? I want to reiterate, I'm so glad you made it out. I'm so glad you were not the one, in fact, shot. And now we got to see this through. We all knew the instant that the man died in the Denver Post, irresponsibly, I might add, ran off with that headline, which forced my hand to be like, hi, if he was a leftist, he'd be on our rolls, and he ain't, which I didn't love doing. But now I guess that makes me the head of Antifa in Denver, according to some individuals, which is not something it's not a prize that I'm trying to claim or take from anyone else.
I just want to be clear. I'm not a leader of any organization. I'm just a man who's fed up with seeing what's been going on. And you see these videos coming out of everywhere of Proud Boys and other right-wing groups showing up with bear mace and weapons and assaulting people. And this one ended very unfortunately for this gentleman, but he made a choice to assault someone. He made a choice to engage with me. He made a choice to threaten my life. When that shot initially went off, I thought that reporter was shooting to protect me. I thought he saw something I did. I didn't, realize that he was macing him. And, the confrontation that happened between the reporter and himself only happened in, 8 seconds. So the chaos that went on behind me really, I thought that, I initially thought that the bullet was for me, and then I saw that man drop. I thought, he was going for a weapon and someone else in the crowd. I really didn't know where it came from, to be honest.
Well, you're someone who's fed up, and I'm someone who's fed up too. And so we're going to see what we can do to increase security for you. I'll speak with you offline about that as soon as we're done. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
So as we want to get you whatever help we possibly can. Thank you for reaching out. Is there anything else that you want to say or feel like has been left out? Like, I hate the way that they've been characterizing you. I appreciate you being here. I can't say that enough. What else do people need to know? Because once you do your interview tomorrow, God knows what the news is going to say. And bless them. I try to be fair because I'm white, and that's what we're trained to do. We try really hard to see the least harmful side of whatever's coming our way. They have 30 seconds to tell a complex, nuanced story, which means they're going to get it wrong. We already have an idea. Like, you're not an organizer, you're just a person acting on your own. What else do you want us to know before you hear that? What else do you expect them to get wrong?
I think they're going to attempt to mischaracterize me as someone who is inciting violence, as someone who's responsible for that man losing his life that day. There'll be attempts to categorize me with leaders, groups, and call me terrorist and Antifa and BLM and all of these things. I'm someone who's witnessed police brutality. I'm someone who's been a victim of police brutality. Back when Eric Garner was killed, many years ago, I was out there peacefully protesting then, and nothing was done. The officer that killed Eric Garner remained a police officer for 7 years. So I know that nothing's going to change if we walk down the street hand in hand. I know what has to happen for things to really change, and I'll be there.
And we'll be there with you every step of the way. I'm so sorry you had this experience, but know that you got Wall of Moms, you got me. And I don't know if that's a white woman saying, like, you can count on us is probably not the most comforting thing you could possibly hear right now. But I promise whatever we can do for you, we're going to do more. Yeah, that's right, Coop. All those cops did nothing. We're going to do more than what those cops did to support you, I think, through it. So. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to hop offline, and I'll send you that link.
Please do. Thanks again, and have a good night.
All right.
Okay. Well, that was totally unexpected, but there you go. Jeremiah Elliott. Nothing about him says terrorist to me. He seems to have a lot of leadership qualities, incredibly at the risk of sounding, I would say well-spoken, but I tell you, it is really hard to speak extemporaneously like that. It's really hard to speak on camera. It's really hard to speak when you aren't certain how many people are listening or how many supporters are in the room, because there's nothing to play off of. What he just did, interview style, is actually fairly difficult, and he pulled it off incredibly well and told a story incredibly well. And you got to give credit where credit is due. So yeah, I do. I have to fucking apologize. I have to fucking apologize for you. I have to fucking apologize for you. Thanks a lot, dickhead. So I'm going to stop. And I think I might need to go play my next round of Pokemon and go to bed. Thanks. There you go. And remember, whatever you hear tomorrow, you heard it here first. He's just someone who's fed up. Is it really that hard to believe? I don't think so.